Much of the hype surrounding the launch of Ampere has centered on both the RTX 3070 and 3080, and for obvious and in my opinion justified reasons, if, as Nvidia claims, the 3070 does turn out to be more powerful than the 2080 Ti, despite its slight VRAM shortage, it will drastically shift graphics card prices in both the used and new markets. In fact, it already has, we made a video about it, and the raw spec delta between the 2080 and 3080 suggests that the latter will pack a serious punch for the price as well. Maybe not as great a value as the 3070, but the 70 series cards have traditionally been better values, no surprise there. They're great shifts in the right direction overall though, from what it seems, and that's why I'm excited about this launch. But I'm also super confused, and it's because of this thing right here. So let's talk. If you're sick of seeing that same Activate Windows watermark over and over, snag an OEM license from SCD Key. You'll have a fully activated OS in seconds, and you can kiss that watermark goodbye. And be sure to use menu offer code GSL for that sweet discount. So why the heck would Nvidia announce this massive thing at the same time as its significantly cheaper counterparts and proceed to lump it into the same GeForce family of gaming cards targeting consumers? It's a $1,500 card, and that's for the FE model. I have no doubt AIB partners will charge more than this with beefed up power delivery and cooling. It seems like there's quite a bit they could do with this card, with this GPU specifically, and we could see these things touching $2,000. Again, for a GeForce grade card. And for those wondering, this card is not tied to the Titan branding we've seen in generations past. Nvidia have even differentiated them directly on their product page, where it reads, the GeForce RTX 3090 is a big ferocious GPU with Titan class performance. But you're not calling it a Titan card. And then if we read a bit further down, they go on to label it the ultimate gaming experience. So this thing is, without a doubt, intended for gamers. I don't think anyone at this point is going to argue that. It says so. I mean, right there, the proof is in the pudding on their website. And they go on to include phrases further down like max FPS and the AI revolution has arrived to gaming. They're using this word quite a bit, gaming. I mean, we've traditionally hailed the 80 series Ti counterpart as the best for gaming in its class, and the only things notably above that were the Titan cards, which were priced ridiculously high for the power outputs you were getting, and some commercial grade Quadro cards, both of which were never marketed directly toward gamers. I mean, sure, gamers purchased Titan cards, some gamers even used Quadro cards, but Nvidia never openly targeted them with these models. Take the Titan XP for instance. The product page reads, incredible computing horsepower and groundbreaking Nvidia Pascal architecture give you the power to accomplish things you never thought possible. No mention of gaming there, which is a deviation from what we're seeing with the 3090. And just a bit further down, the product's mission statement reads, purpose-built to deliver up to 3 times the performance of previous generation graphics cards, enabling amazing new possibilities for creatives, researchers, and PC enthusiasts. Again, no reference to gaming. In fact, the only place where the word even comes up is in the context of its Maxwell Titan X comparison. Latest gaming technologies and next-gen VR experiences. And then nothing about gaming anywhere else on the product page. Contrast that with this, where they've literally got demos of Death Stranding and Watch Dogs Legion, a reference to the possibility of 8K gaming, which we'll talk more about in a second, and Nvidia Reflex, which is a latency optimizer for G-Sync panels. It's all about gaming here, a very, very different narrative, and that's why I'm confused. I mean, what gives, Nvidia? I mean, what's the point of having a GeForce card in your ranks at more than double the price of the next best option? I mean, for that huge ask, we're only getting a 20% bump in CUDA cores, which people seem to be overlooking. We're getting a lower base and boost clock. We're getting greater power draw, to reference to the ultra beefy cooler. Oh, and don't forget the insane amount of memory. 24 gigs of GDDR6X. And this is probably the most confusing part. It's like, we get it. You can stack a serious number of modules around your GPU. Glad you've got that kind of real estate. But what tangible benefit does it offer for gamers? That's the important question, because you're marketing this as a gaming card. Do you know how difficult it would be to fully saturate that frame buffer, 24 gigs? I mean, 8K aside, which I don't even think is viable in 2020, it would be a serious feat to come anywhere close to saturating 24 gigs in 4K. Ultra settings, some games I don't even hit 10 gigs of VRAM, let alone 20 or 24. I mean, put it this way, Nvidia was perfectly content with offering 10 gigs of GDDR6X in the 3080, a card that we expect to significantly outperform its Turing counterpart. But what sense is there in bumping shaders by only 20% and bumping VRAM by over 100%? I mean, what sorts of gaming applications does this cover? And why should you expect gamers to consider a card of this caliber and with this odd of a configuration? 8K gaming aside, again, because I feel like that's the only defense anyone has for this card's existence is, oh, well, you need that frame buffer for 8K gaming. But who the heck is 8K gaming? So the price is just unjustified, if you ask me. It looks like on the surface as though you're paying a hefty premium for an insane amount of video memory you'll likely never use. Future-proof? I mean, sure, that phrase gets tossed around a lot, but everything's future-proof in the right setting. It's easy to throw that phrase around. And there's just no real-world use case in 2020 for 24 gigs in a gaming context, right? Simultaneously, if you're pushing this strictly as a gaming card, it just, I can't be the only one thinking this. I mean, I'd love a chance to sit down with Nvidia's GeForce marketing team and pick their brains over this one because I highly doubt that this card exists solely for 8K gaming. It seems like either a publicity stunt, maybe muscle flexing, and that's fine, and that's fine and dandy as long as you're honest about the card's applications. And I don't feel as though gaming is an honest, or at least totally honest interpretation of what these specifications represent. The RTX 3090 is a productivity workhorse disguised as a gaming card. Change my mind. I've no doubt yields across the board have improved for RT and tensor-based wafers, and I've also no doubt we'll see a healthy supply in the months ahead. I would be surprised if 6 months from now you couldn't just easily buy a 3070 for around MSRP. And the prices of the 3080 and 3070 alone support these inferences. The MSRPs out of the gate, I should say. And historically speaking, there haven't been huge issues with this, Turing aside. I think Turing was an exception because it was such a radical deviation from the standard GPU. People that bought into the Turing architecture, I think, kind of fell for it just a tad. But anyway, it just confuses me. I haven't totally figured out why they've ditched the Titan branding for the 3090. I mean, it makes no sense from a gamer's perspective to spend more than twice the 3080's ask for something with only a 20% CUDA RT and tensor bump, slightly lower clocks again, and more than double the VRAM. Nvidia wouldn't cripple its flagship GeForce 80 series by omitting what it thought was a necessary amount of VRAM given its GPU capabilities. Going off script here, maybe this is their approach. Maybe instead of differentiating cards to the extent that they used to by the GPU, maybe they're gonna differentiate SKUs more so by the amount of VRAM available, since these GPUs appear to be so capable. Huh. So why didn't they shove, say, 16 gigs of VRAM, something that seems a bit more sensible, kind of gonna line up with what Big Navi apparently will offer, into the 3090 and offer it for, say, $900? I mean, wouldn't that make more sense? Wouldn't it scale more consistently with what consumers have come to expect from the GeForce family of graphics cards? Obviously I'm wrong, because if it made more sense, Nvidia would have done just that. But instead we're left with this awkward card at the top, by a mile, that casts this huge and confusing shadow over the gaming lineup from Team Green. Maybe they just wanted to cover themselves in the wake of Big Navi rumors, and I could get on board with that one. Maybe they just said, screw it, let's throw everything we can into this thing just for the heck of it. I suppose I could believe that as well, Nvidia being Nvidia. Maybe they're going after 8K, right? Which we would expect to demand significantly more VRAM than the 10 or 11 gigs that we're used to, we've come to expect from the 1080 Ti and the 2080 Ti. But then you've got to ask yourself how sensible 8K gaming is in 2020. I mean, forget about monitor availability in that resolution. How about just the point of 8K if you're sitting a little under a meter away from your screen? Why tax your system that heavily for a minor perceivable difference? And I know some are gonna say, well, I've looked at 8K screens and then going back to 4K, it's just too much for me. Okay, yeah, but have you looked at an 8K screen at 120 FPS versus 60? Have you looked at a 4K screen at 120 FPS versus 60? I'd take 4K 120 over 8K 30 or whatever the 3090 is capable of in some modern AAA titles any day of the week, right? Over 8K 30. There's no comparison. I can't even wrap my mind around how that would be ideal for gamers. And that's why I don't, again, agree with the whole gaming approach to this card. I'm clearly not understanding something, but either way, I disagree with the references to gaming in the marketing material, and I don't want people going out and buying this thing, spending outrageous sums of cash for a card that never should have been targeted to gamers in the first place, in my opinion. I don't expect everyone to agree with that. We can have healthy debates in the comment sections. I do that all the time on Twitter, and that's cool. But for reasons I explained earlier, just to me, it does not make sense. Don't buy this card for freaking 1080p, okay? Or even 4K. The 3080 will handle 4K just fine, it appears, and it seems to be a much better value. So why is the 3090 there again? I mean, if you're gonna squeeze a TI model in between these two, are you just gonna like keep the same 3090 GPU and then strip the VRAM? Going back to what we were talking about a bit earlier, about how they might differentiate product SKUs more so by VRAM than they will by GPU potential. That's a possibility, but then I still don't get it. I mean, why not just call a 3090 a productivity card? You can call it a 3090, but not give it the same kind of like gaming vibe that you are in your marketing material. I know they want to be more consistent, and they want to be, you know, it's getting really confusing with the Titan nomenclature, like, oh, Titan X, Titan XP, Titan X little p. I mean, no one wants to deal with that mess, and I agree with them in the sense that they've wanted to shift from that. But even if you want to keep this, you know, as a 3090, I'm not asking you to change the name, just don't push it so much on your product page as a gaming card, because I'm afraid that some folks who are just not as tech savvy, and there are many people like that, many people, you know, I'm not an expert in everything, definitely. I'm hardly an expert in PC stuff. There's a lot of stuff I still don't understand, still don't have a full grasp around, but I just feel like a lot of people are gonna look at this and they're gonna say, wow, this is definitely the best because Nvidia is saying it's the best for gaming, but it's not the best card for the money. I don't expect Nvidia to say that, hey, this isn't our best value card, but I expect them to not paint it in a light that it shouldn't be painted in with respect to the VRAM, which I assume is mostly what you're paying for. I mean, you're getting a GPU that's not stripped down per se, but you're also spending insane amounts of money on VRAM that you'll likely never use. Who knows? If you guys want to leave comments down below, give me your feedback, I'd appreciate that. If you liked the video, thumbs up, consider subscribing. Let's chat some on Twitter, elsewhere. Join our public Discord server if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for chatting with me.